Okay, so today we're going to do day 2 of the 8.6 notes. So we're still going to look at how we can use zeros of a quadratic function to sketch a graph. So let's review. So the vertex is either the highest or lowest point of your parabola. So in other words, what we do is we call that the maximum or the minimum. Okay, and so if you remember, a parabola is, if I draw, looks like a U. There we go. Looks like a U, either opens up or it opens down. So here, this would be the minimum. It's on the bottom, it's the lowest. And here, this is the max. So remember, it is a U shape. Okay, so let's review what we did the previous day. Let's look at our x-intercepts here and how we can use our x-intercepts to help us to graph. So what did we do? We set each of our factors equal to 0. And so we got x is equal to -3. And so when we find the x-intercept, remember it is x comma 0. So you have an x here, so that first x-intercept is -3 comma 0. So if you go to your graph, you're going to plot it. So -1, 2, 3, make a dot. Okay, and then we're going to do the other one. Set the other factor equal to 0. So x equals 2. Okay, so that x-intercept is 2 comma 0. So overwrite 1, 2 comma 0. Okay, now we want to find a vertex. It's either going to be the highest point or the lowest point. So let's look and see, how do we find the vertex? Halfway between my x-intercepts. So my x-intercept was -3 plus 2 divided by 2. And so -3 plus 2 is -1 divided by 2. So -1 divided by 2, it's the same thing as -0.5. So -0.5 is my x. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the y-coordinate. So we have the -1/2, right, or -0.5. And we need to substitute that or replace it into my original function. Okay, so we're going to put it in for the x here and for the x here. So y equals -0.5 plus 3, parentheses, -0.5 minus 2. Okay, so when you think about how do we go ahead and find this. Okay, so remember, -0.5 plus 3, this is 2.5. Okay, and then you got -0.5 minus 2, and that's -2.5. Okay, so -2.5 times 2.5 is, my y is -6.25. So that's my vertex. Okay, that's my vertex. My vertex is, the x is -0.5 and the y is -6.25. Okay, so -0.5 is between 0 and -1. So -0.5 is here. Okay, and then we're going to -6.25. So we got to go down. 6.25, so it's a little more than -6. So there's my point, there's my vertex. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my parabola here. Okay, and make like a U. So that's what we were doing when we had our x-intercepts, right? So now, what if it's not given to you in standard form? What if my equation is not given in standard form? Or, sorry, factor form. What if it's not in factor form, it's in standard form right now? And we were used to seeing this. We were used to seeing the parentheses with their factors. So what you have to do are 2 steps, okay? So step 1 is you need to factor. Okay, so you need to factor. Okay, so that way your equation is going to look like this with the parentheses, and you're going to use the box. So you're going to factor by using the squares, right? The squares. Once you do that, you're going to go ahead and follow the same steps we did in this example, number 1 here. Okay, so you're gonna follow all these steps as number 1. Okay, so just like this was in the factored form, that was the factored form steps. So you need to factor them first before you can go ahead and follow the steps for the factored form. So let's do a question together here. Okay, number 2. So it's in standard form, it's not in factored form, so we need to factor. So we're going to make our square, we're going to make our box here, okay? And we're going to put in the information that we have here. So we have x squared goes in the first box. You have plus 12, okay? And then your middle term, remember, your corners, or your diagonals, they have to add to get you a positive 8x. So it has to add to positive 8x. So if we look at our first box here, we know we have x times x is x squared. We have to look for what multiplies to positive 12 but adds to positive 8. Well, we could do 6, positive 6, and positive 2, because 6 times 2 is 12, and then 6 plus 2 is 8. That's what we want. Okay, so if we double check our work here, okay, you're going to see, okay, it adds up together and multiplies, so we're good. So here are my factors. You have parenthesis x plus 6, parenthesis x plus 2. Okay, now we can find and use these same steps as the question number 1 to help us to graph. Okay, so we do the first parenthesis here, we set it equal to 0. So x is negative 6. So my first x-intercept is negative 6 comma 0. So negative 6 comma 0, we'll put that on our graph. Okay, and the second factor, set it equal to 0. X equals negative 2. So my second x-intercept is negative 2 comma 0. So negative 2 comma 0. And you can do the cross if you want, right? The la cruz. Okay, or you can do opposite operations. Any way is fine. Okay, so we have our x-intercepts. Now we have to find our vertex. So let's find the vertex halfway between x-intercepts. So let's take my x-intercepts divided by 2. Negative 6 plus negative 2 is negative 8, divided by 2 is negative 4. And then you have to take the negative 4 and substitute it in for x here and here. So you have negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 plus 12. Okay, so let's see what we have. Negative 4 squared is positive 16. And then 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. And then we have plus 12. Okay, so when you go ahead and do 16 minus 32 plus 12, that gets you negative 4. So your vertex, here's your x, here's the y. So negative 4, negative 4. So negative 4, negative 4, and down 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then now we can go ahead and draw our parabola. So we make a U points up. Okay. All right, and we're going to do one more example together, number 3. All right, so again, not in factored form, so we need to factor it. Okay, so we'll use our square here. You have x squared needs to add up to negative 10x and then plus 25. Okay, so you have x times x is x squared. And then we have to see what multiplies to 25 but adds to negative 10. So let's try negative 5 and negative 5. So we fill in our boxes here. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. When I add my diagonals or my corners, do they add up to negative 10x? They do. And then I'm good. Okay, we have them multiply to positive 25. So my factors here are x minus 5 and x minus 5. Okay, so hopefully you see that the two factors look the same. Okay, so they are the same factors. So we set equal to 0, x is equal to 5. So my x-intercept is 5 comma 0. So if I do for the second factor, again, I'm going to get the same x-intercept. So I have one x-intercept here, only one. So that's at 5, 0 on my graph. Okay. So when you only have one, okay, that's okay. You can have one, only one x-intercept. So now let's try to find our vertex. Okay. So halfway between my x-intercepts. Well, if I have 5 and this one will also have been 5. I have 10 divided by 2. Hey, that's 5 again. Okay. So if I have 5, again, is my x. Well, if I find my y, let's see. It's probably going to be 0. So let's try it. Let's see. Plug in 5 in for x. So you get 25 minus 50 plus 25, which is 0. So your vertex and your x-intercepts are the same. Okay, so vertex and x-intercepts is the same. So now you have to see, okay, well, does it open up or down? Okay, so you have to ask yourself that. You're not sure. So what you need to do is look at the number, look at the sign in front of your x squared. Okay, this is positive. It's a positive 1. So if it's positive, that means your graph opens up, right? So opens up, there you go, opens up with one x-intercept. It's always an imaginary one. So there are 2 questions here for you to do as 4 and 5 to do as practice, okay? And then you can submit your notes to Schoology.